right? And then so if you sell a covered call on it, you've collected some income right off the bat immediately. Once you sell that call, the premium for it goes directly into your account. And so now, essentially, you've essentially bought the shares at a slightly lower price because you've collected that premium. And so, in that sense, it's a little bit safer, if that makes sense, than simply owning the shares.
Yeah, so you've locked in a certain percentage of gains versus holding it and you don't know what it's going to do. Um, it just it caps your upside if the stock like does take off. I guess it depends on how long you plan on like holding the stock and what the stock does long term.
Yes, yeah, and you're right. It does cap your upside. Yeah, so you don't, and that's one of the risks of the covered call is your upside is limited, but like John was mentioning, there are ways to roll it if it does go above the strike price and you get called out on it, then you can roll the position. But that usually costs some more investment, that sometimes you have to have some more outlay to do that.
Yeah, that's the part I don't understand or don't know at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Rolling.
I'll try to make some clarity with that. I'll try to help out with that as best I can.
All right. All right. Well, um, got a couple bodies. I'm sure more people will trickle in here, but I think we can get started. I don't think there's anybody else that I was necessarily waiting for. Um, but yeah, I would love to just, spend kind of a week. Been a week where, my strategy's sort of been trading sideways-ish, a little bit down. And I think this is a good time to sort of talk about other strategies and ways that we can sort of prepare ourselves and keep learning the Swiss Army knife of options. Um, and Joe has a professional background in finance and in trading. I think over 30 years, right, Joe? And so
Well, I wouldn't say professional for 30 years because it was back in the late 90s. I did have my Series 7 and Series 63 stockbroker's license and dove deep into the options side of things and was doing a lot of options back then and training people on some options. I have since I got out of the finance field. My wife and I started a special events company. I also started a company in sustainable energy. And so we are doing kind of different things. But I have been trading options for the last 20 years or so in different ways and different methods. So I have some experience there. And uh, just like Brian always remind us, everything here is not financial advice. I'm just here to help share my knowledge. And, one of the reasons, because of my experience, I have a lot of battle scars as well, because you can earn a lot of money, you can also lose money at the same time. And so it's important to always take a good look at your risk level as well as your overall portfolio and how much you want to allocate towards options. That being said, anything else, John, that you want to bring up before I kind of dive into things? No? Okay. So what I'd like to do is just kind of start off. I was thinking, because John asked me about the tweet that somebody put out a few days ago. You guys may have seen the tweet that someone was comparing the IBIT covered call options versus the Mr. covered call options. And so we started with saying, if you have 80,000 of iBid shares, you can sell 50% out of the money covered calls for approximately $300 income per month. And then he says, if you do the same thing with Mr., you can generate nearly 7K per month currently. And it's an orders of magnitude difference in the options for the sellers. And then his example is he has a Mr. 500 call that expires on December 27th, and he sells two of them, and he earns $6,900 for selling those two options. So let's just start off with this premise of what he's talking about. Starting with 80K, $80,000 is his pool of money that he's going to do this covered call strategy with. So what I did first is to compare, and when I analyzed his trades here, I noticed there's a little bit of a flaw in his percentages because he's not really comparing apples to apples. The MicroStrategy call at the 50% out of the money would actually generate, let me see, where are my notes? It would generate about $4,300, not the 7K that he mentioned in his tweet. And so he's a little bit off there. However, it's still amazing, because earning the 4,300 still blows away the 300 a month on the iBid. So let's get into what a covered call is. So when you look at options, and let me see, can I share my screen, John?
Yeah, you should be able to. I think you've got participants on, should be able to share.
Okay. And while I pull this up, yeah, let me just pull this up. And I'm just going to start with the iBid share. Okay, here we are. And here we are. Okay, this is a little bit of my trading options screen. So looking at the iBid options. So iBid's currently at $54.55 right there. And so if you divide the 80,000 that gentleman is talking about by that number, 80 divided by the 54.55, that comes out to 1,466. So that's how many shares of iBid he can buy, is 1,466. Every option contract represents 100 shares. So in this case, his 80K can control 14 option contracts. Now, when he looks at the out of the money options at the end of December, let me shrink this screen down here and go to December 27th. So here we have the strike prices. The strike price is, well, let me jump back. I apologize. Let me find a good option that, there it is. Let's just say this one right here. And that's going to pull up this ticket. And so the way the options are rated, and the way I think of an option is just as like a piece of paper that's a contract. And on this piece of paper, on the contract, it'll give the terms of the contract. One is the date that it expires. In this case, December 27th. So that's part of the terms. And then the strike price is 55. So that's the price that a buyer of the option, a buyer of the contract, they have the option to buy 100 shares at a price of $55 a share. The seller of the contract has the obligation to provide the shares at that cost. And the expiration date of December 27 is when that person can exercise that option. So close that out. When he's looking at what he calls 50% out of the money options, I assume, and I think we're going to look at what's 1.5 times 54. So
Yeah. So like something like 75 or somewhere in that area.
yeah, exactly. So we'll just go down to the 75 strike price, like 75 or 80 down here. And the bid and the ask is there. And so when you're selling an option, so he's going to buy all those shares. And just to put it in perspective of one contract, 100 shares of IBIT is going to cost $5,455. So now you've bought the shares, you own them, and now you can sell a covered call. So if you go 50% out of the money, this would be the 75 strike price. You're going to get the bid when you sell it, because that's what buyers are willing to pay for it. And it's listed at 0.15. So, and because each contract represents 100 shares, you just move the decimal point over 2 places, that's $15. So selling at 50% out of the money, he's going to get $15 per contract. And based on $80,000 of funds available, he could sell 14 of those. So it's 14 times 15 comes out to about $200. You know, he made about $300 in his example on the tweet. Now, this is what's kind of neat about MicroStrategy. Because of the huge volatility of it, if we do the same thing, let me change this out to MicroStrategy. Pull that up and look at the contracts on MicroStrategy. Because of the extreme volatility, the option prices are a lot higher. Now, for his 80,000, you would be buying 200 shares of MicroStrategy, so you could control 2 contracts, 2 options contracts instead of 14 with IBIT. Now, if we go 50% out of the money, which in his example was around the 500 strike price. Whoops, I got too many dates opened up. So this is what's fun about options trading as well, is just that, options. You have choices. There's so many choices, so many different methods, so many strategies. You can adjust your strategies on the fly as things are going. But for today, of course, it's just the covered calls. So I'm going to go out to December 27. And he was looking at the 500 option. Let me get a few more strikes on here, put all. Give it a second to load. There we go. Okay, so this option brings in, and this is 50% out of the money. So he'll collect about $1,400 for each contract. And since he can sell 2, he's going to make $3,000 a month instead of the $200 from the IBIT. And now in terms of percentage of that overall and that initial amount of money that he had to work with, using IBIT, he makes a gain of between 0.5% and 1% for a month, which is not bad considering you're just selling options. And that same percentage applies to like Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. You'll get a little bit more because they're more volatile as well. So if you can get 1% in a month, you're doing okay, not too bad selling covered calls. With MicroStrategy, we're looking at between 5 and 8% of the overall, which is massive. It's a massive difference. And to be able to gain that is incredible. I started doing a few of these myself the other day. So I did it by the week, and I'm doing it weekly. So one of the things I did was I bought 100 shares, and 3 days from now, yesterday, for example, I bought 100 shares of MicroStrategy, and then in this one that expires in 3 days. I went into this and checked it out. Let me scroll down. Got a lot of strikes. See, with MicroStrategy too, there's so many more options and strike prices available. So I bought 100 shares, trading it around 380, and I sold, let me see which one of these I sold. I think I sold the 430. So I sold this 430 strike price option. It expires in 3 days. I collected $300 for it. So that's $300 in a matter of 3 or 4 days on that one. If I repeat this every week, I'm earning an additional like 1,500. And now if say MicroStrategy skyrockets and goes up to 430, I'm okay with that or above because I bought the 100 shares at 380. So now not only am I collecting the premium on the covered call option that I sold, but now if it triggers and sells my 100 shares, it's selling at a much higher price right off the bat. So that's the beautiful thing about utilizing a covered call strategy.
So the only downside of that is that you're losing some upside if it runs away significantly. Like it runs up to 500, well, you had to sell at 430, so you're going to miss that $70 from 430 to 500. Is that fair to say?
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah. And I was hoping to pull up the Thinkorswim platform. That's on my other computer. I had to transfer some computer data, so
Yep.
I don't have the Thinkorswim. I think Nathaniel had it before, but that has some good graphics that show those maximum profits and those kind of things that you're talking about. You're absolutely right. If it skyrockets above 430, you sell it at 430 and kind of miss out on the gains. Um,
You may
you
not be
know,
able you may not be able to get back in at a price near where you originally bought it, like you said, at 370 or whatever it is. You're forced to sell it. You're now a forced seller at 430, which you're happy about because you've made a significant profit and you get to keep that premium that you sold at the very beginning. But now it runs away to 500, and now you missed out on $70 or whatever it might be of appreciation. Now you can only buy 50 shares, say, or whatever it might be.
right. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I do as well, I'll do this often, MicroStrategy, for example, when I bought it, it was 385, I think, or somewhere around there when I bought the 100 shares. And so then I sold that 430, and it was a little bit more valuable, or I'm sorry, yeah. So what did I collect on that?
Yeah,
Somewhere, yeah, the 300. So now MicroStrategy's been dropping the past couple of days. And
yeah,
if it drops a little bit more, if it drops a little bit more, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy back this option because as MicroStrategy drops in price, this way out of the call contract is also going to drop in price.
sure.
So it's going to drop, drop, drop. I'm going to buy it back. So I'll close out that option position and then immediately sell another one that's closer to the money and then collect a little bit more than what I sold it back for, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
that's in a way like rolling it, depending on which way the underlying stock moves, I can roll it that way.
Something interesting to point out here is, in the original example on iBit, uh, 50% out of the money had a 0.046 delta. So it only had a 4% chance, as the market was predicting, of occurring, of getting to that price. You look at the same one here, if you scroll down to 500,
Oh yeah.
right? It's like what do we got?
Oh, 0.032, yeah.
Yeah, so they're actually pretty similar in terms of deltas, but you're getting, oh, I'm sorry, this is December 6th. Sorry, I was thinking about,
Oh yeah, we're on the
sorry,
wrong
yeah,
date.
wrong date. I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I was looking at. Yeah, if you go to December 27th, you'll see that the deltas are considerably higher because of that volatility. The likelihood of it happening is much higher, which is what you're getting paid for in the risk. That was the one thing I had a kind of a question about what he was. So yeah, let's see, what does 500 say? So 500 has got a 23% delta or 23 delta, or in other words, basically a 24% chance. It's essentially 10 times more likely to gain 50% than IBIT is in the next by the 27th, which is why you're getting paid so much more in this example than you are in the other example. So I that was the only part of the I'm starting to understand this stuff a little bit more, which is dangerous, right? Because now I'm starting to read the tea leaves a little bit better. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. A
but
higher
yeah,
percentage that it's going to hit that 50% out of the money. And so that's what you're getting paid for is
right.
that, yeah, that closer to the chance of it happening.
So here's a question. I don't know if you can answer or not, but I if you don't own, so I don't own any shares of MicroStrategy. I only own call options, but I have some call options that are pretty deep in the money. Can I utilize those to exercise this same strategy? Can I do covered calls with an in the money option contract that I own?
I think that depends on the platform. Like Schwab may allow that. I'm not sure. Robinhood, I don't know if they do it or not, but it probably depends on the platform you're using, and as well as, say, at Schwab, they're going to consider what your other holdings are, I think, and if they have to cover some things or whatever.
Okay. Hey, Rochelle, you said you did your first covered call this week.
Yeah, last week.
You want to talk us through that experience, doing it as a first timer, what that was, how that went?
Uh, sure. Well, so I just learned to sell puts on Tesla like years ago. So
Okay.
pretty much it was a course that I took that taught you how to like evaluate companies, and then once you decided on what company you wanted, um, you could either just like buy into it and hold forever, or because you had this foundation of knowledge where you felt comfortable, or you could do like selling puts because it was something you wanted to own anyway, whether it got exercised or not. Um, so I sort of just like reversed what I learned from that as far as like figuring out which strike price I wanted and how far out of the money. I think like most stocks, it's kind of plus or minus 20% is their range that they tend to go to. There was also a reasoning for picking 1 month out. Like 1 month is the time frame I'm used to. Um, I forget those variables. I know where to find it though. I keep meaning to go look at it to refresh my memory. But like the 1 month time frame, like reduced a certain amount of risk, but had like the highest reward point. So I went with like the 1 month, kind of picked out where I wanted. Um, I was really surprised at the premiums on MicroStrategy. I never looked at it. I had MicroStrategy.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't think to do any kind of options on it until like you started this group, and I was like, I should be looking at this. Like I don't know why I'm not. I don't know what took me so long to like try it. Um, yeah, because with
So are you just doing covered calls, or are you doing did you buy just some call options as well, or
I
just
did just a covered
so
call.
you own the
I
shares?
don't I so mine I'm using Vanguard. That's where my retirement account is. They only allow covered calls. You have to have the shares. So I don't think I can.
So you can't even buy just a regular naked option.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then I think when I sold puts before with Tesla, it was years ago, but I feel like 1,000 a month was like that was solid. That was good. That was pretty easy to get for like months in a row. And then like because Tesla was kind of moving like up and down and sideways for a while.
Sure.
And then when it did have like the big drop, that's when I would get put shares. Um but with yeah, so with MicroStrategy, the premiums are like you got to do some of
They're
these like
insane.
you got to like it's very worth the risk and
Yeah,
the effort
I'll
here.
just jump in and say, and repeat that when I've done the options in the past, and I'm looking at different companies, Tesla, Apple, Nvidia, whatever, and I'm trading options on them, doing it in a covered call way or a covered put. Like Rochelle was doing covered puts on Tesla, where you're selling below the price and collecting that premium, and you just have your cash there. And I would attempt to achieve, like on a weekly basis, if I was going to do them like 1 week out, I'd want to achieve like 25 basis points, if you will, or like, 0.25 of 1%. So if I'm earning 1% a month doing that, I'm thinking I'm doing pretty good because this is like a 1% icing, if you will. Because in the covered call scenario, if you get called out, you're not only making that 1% a month, but you also make the difference on the higher strike price, so you're still earning money that way. Um, so like I say, 1% was acceptable. And now with the micro strategy, it's like 5 to 8%. Huge. It's a massive boost,
Yeah.
when doing these things. Because then now I'm also like oftentimes thinking, how do I double my money? And how long is it going to take to double my money? And if I'm doing 1%, that's going to take, I'll earn 12% a year or whatever. So that's, about 8 years, 7, 8 years to double my money. Whereas with the micro strategy, if I can do 8% in a month, then I'm doubling my money. Well, let's see, what is that? Brian would probably be
It's
able.
it's the rule of 72, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, so it's just 72 divided by your annualized interest rate gives you how many years it's going to take you for it to actually double. So if you're doing 5%, if you're doing 5% every month times 12, that's 60. 72 divided by 60 is what, 1.2 years? So 14 months.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Doubling the money in like a year as opposed to 8 years.
Right.
So, yeah, so I'm starting to, you know, uh, shift a lot more of my assets towards these kind of strategies
Yeah.
with MicroStrategy.
How long do you think this premium, I mean, what changes, what's going to affect that premium? Is it just the volatility coming down? Is it, is that the big thing? And I would imagine, even these last couple of weeks, that volatility has probably come down considerably from a week or two ago or 3 weeks ago when we kind of, running from what 160 in the middle of October all the way up to 550 in November, end of November. We're a week out from that, I guess. So I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to the premiums available, but I would imagine they have probably come down a little bit with the volatility, but obviously not that much if you're still talking 5 to 8%.
Yeah, yeah, so far not that much. And,
I guess
you
also
know,
volume, like just the interest in it. It's just a high volume. Like, yeah, premiums on Tesla used to be amazing when everyone was talking about Tesla.
Sure.
And like they're still decent, but they've come down since like the hype in like early
Yeah.
2020. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these, these guys, the guys who are really jumping into MicroStrategy, a few of them kind of came over from Tesla, and I think, um, but they were getting involved in MicroStrategy well before the volume and volatility had spiked like this. They just saw it for what it was. It was a Bitcoin play, and um, you know, I feel like I got here dumb luck wise, and I'm still feeling that way, and I'm just kind of learning. For me, the thing that's exciting about learning this stuff is I would love nothing more than to make money on shorting things like Coinbase or, some one of these companies that I consider like a shitcoin, casino type thing. And so learning option strategies and learning how to play some of this stuff is a lot more interesting for those kinds of reasons and those kind of plays. I would love to there's got to be no sweeter money than making money on a company that you hate, dying a quick death after a Bitcoin bull run. Um, and we'll see. I mean, I'm still dipping my toes as you guys see, and I'm, we're talking through this stuff. You know, Saylor just bought another 1.5 billion dollars worth of Bitcoin last week or on Monday. We're probably going to see they just crossed 400,000 Bitcoin. We're probably going to see them running through that promised 21 and 42 billion dollars probably the next year rather than 4 years. And now you're seeing other companies starting to join the party. Marathon just offered their first convertible debt and was oversold. I think they went from 700 billion to 850 billion. Um, I don't know what effect that's going to have on MicroStrategy specifically. Like, is that going to steal some of the thunder from MicroStrategy? I think that similar to Bitcoin and then all these other shit coins or these other altcoins, whatever. I think MicroStrategy has such a formidable lead in this and are able and is such a powerful name in this game, and they will still create a higher bond uh, interest from these other because they're the ones being talked about. Sailor's the one that's going around visiting all these places, but you got Semler, you got Marathon, you got Metaplanet, you got other companies starting to do this. You got other companies adding it to their treasury. You know what's going to happen when Microsoft gets involved next week, and if that actually comes to fruition, which I still don't think it will. I still think that Microsoft is a legacy company, and there's no way they're going to offer to put Bitcoin in their treasury. But are other companies watching that? Are other companies listening? For sure. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the beginning sort of copycats of this. Um, and I'm,
And
I'm
I,
extremely
I,
bullish on this. And I'm extremely bullish on MicroStrategy. I will continue to be until something else changes. But what are you going to say, Joe?
oh, I was just going to say when you said you don't think Microsoft is going to do it, which I'll have to agree, but I have to use the word yet.
Yeah.
Microsoft will not do it yet,
Right.
that eventually they will. And
Well, everybody will eventually bend the knee to Bitcoin, whether it's
yeah,
an individual, a company, or a nation state. I mean, we know where we're at with this stuff. We know what Bitcoin is. We know it's this unstoppable force, and we're still super. I just keep reminding people like this thing's only been around for 15 years. It's a teenager. Like it doesn't become the global reserve currency overnight. And these are the kinds of things that have to happen in order for it to get there. Um, but yeah, I think to me this is more, and I think Sailor might have even said something to this effect, but he's putting a flag in the ground and saying, similar to the like I like to look back, or I like to have receipts from when I told friends or family to say, hey, you should buy Bitcoin. Here's the price I told you to buy it at. It was $4,000, and this is what you missed. I feel like Sailor's kind of doing the same thing at the corporate level. He's like, I'm telling you now to copy exactly what I'm doing. Here's the flag in the sand. It was under 100K when I told you in 5 years from now, it's going to be, 500K or $1 million, whatever it is. He goes, see, I told you at 100K. Now it's a million. You don't listen to me now. You're going to do it at 10 million. And there will be companies that don't put Bitcoin in their treasury until Bitcoin hits $10 million, which is crazy to say, but it will absolutely happen. And there will be nation states still fighting it, trying to tax it as unrealized capital gains, at 10 million, $100 million, and people will hopefully be able to arbitrage that and take advantage of that. And we're early. We're in this place where a lot of people still don't know what MicroStrategy is, don't know really what Bitcoin is. I mentioned it to some people that I was hanging out with last week, and the guy was like, "Oh, that bubble's blowing up again." It's still that mentality, this bubble mentality, and we're still clearly in this bubble phase. I mean, I was on two spaces yesterday and today, and both of them were talking about XRP. They were supposed to be Bitcoin spaces, and they're talking about Ripple. I couldn't believe it. It sounded like it was 2017 all over again. And so people aren't going to learn that lesson, I guess. I was really hopeful that this was going to be like the first real like Bitcoin only. Like the rest of it is, I do think there does seem to be a bit of a difference in this cycle in that like the 2017, it was really like there are these other tokens that have utility. They're going to be, they serve a purpose. They're faster. They're better than Bitcoin. They're going to flip Bitcoin, whatever. 2011 it was like, oh, there's this new technology, or sorry, 2021 it's technology, it's NFTs, it's that we're tokenizing everything, and like Bitcoin can't do that, so that's why these chains. This cycle seems to be a little bit more like, we know this is just gambling, like we know these are like all these meme coins that are popping off. It's like, we know this is has no utility, we're just here having fun. Some people are making money doing it, et cetera, et cetera. But this conversation about Ripple, I just think is funny, because Ripple happens to be the one that peaked this period, right? And last cycle it was Doge, and everyone was like, "Oh, Doge is going to be this thing," and it's like nobody's talking about Doge this time, right? Now it's Ripple, but people they want to be like, "Well, that's because it's going after Swift. It's a serious thing. The SEC was keeping it down, like blah blah blah." It's like, no, it's just the psychosis of the masses. All of these things will trend to zero eventually against Bitcoin, and MicroStrategy gets that, right. He's not. They're not asking him about Ripple. They're not asking him about. He's not talking about other coins. He's not talking about when to buy or profit or any of that stuff. He's just trying to collect as much Bitcoin as he possibly can, just like we are. And I really appreciate doing these kind of spaces because now we have this new tool and we get to be part of that, like leveraging the fiat system, leveraging the traditional finance system in order to try to get our hands on more Bitcoin. I didn't think I was ever able to do that, and I feel like I most of that is because I am unwilling to trade, things I don't understand, cryptos I don't understand, markets I don't understand, just because I can make a buck. MicroStrategy, because they're backed by Bitcoin and because their CEO is this Bitcoin maxi, it feels very much in line with my ethos towards Bitcoin, and really trying to create a better world through money. And I hope that vision isn't getting, and I know that vision is not getting lost. It gets muddied sometimes. It gets muddled sometimes because we're all here in the bull markets trying to make as much Bitcoin as we possibly can. But in the end, to me, it's all about how do we make the world a better place through Bitcoin adoption, and the only way I can really affect that is to try to get as many people as much Bitcoin as they can. I think trying to find some purpose in this is like, how many people can I convince to buy Bitcoin? How many people can I convince to usher in this new sort of universe that I'd like to see happen? And that I have this tool that I can store my value in, and then I have this sword that I can kind of fight that battle with, and that's MicroStrategy to me. Um, so anyway, that being said, I did want to talk about this covered calls thing because I talked to Brent a little bit about it a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago, and it does seem like there's something that I'm missing, and this feels like I definitely learned a lot tonight just kind of talking through it with you guys. So maybe I'll start getting to the point where I feel a little bit less shy about pulling the trigger. And like
Yeah.
you said, Rochelle, it's like there's something about like actually doing it and going, oh, wait a minute, like that money just showed up and and it worked out. Like, okay, like
That
now I
was
guess
so
I can
bad,
do that
especially with
again.
Black Friday deals. I'm
Well,
like, I'm gonna blow it all in 1 week. I'm like, don't spend it, don't spend it.
well, John, keep in mind also, like I was mentioning to Rochelle, when you do a covered call, that's actually a safer play than just
Yeah,
buying
yeah.
out the
Explain that to
stock
me.
outright.
Sorry, you did say that at the beginning of the call, and I wanted to revisit that. So you told Rochelle it's actually a safer call to do a cover call rather than owning the shares. How so?
Because you're collecting premium right immediately when you sell the call. So, you know,
Regardless of what happens to the price, you're going to collect that premium.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So then, if say in the case of this MicroStrategy call option, that expires next month and you collect, $3,000 on it or whatever,
Right.
and MicroStrategy goes to zero, well, if you'd have just bought the shares, you lose everything, it goes to zero. But at least now you have $3,000.
Right.
So
Very good
in
point.
that sense, it's slightly safer than,
It's icing on a non-existent cake at that point.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then like if you do kind of like what I'm doing this week, I sold the covered call. It's dropped a little bit, so I'll probably buy it back and then sell another one, to collect more premium. So I'm collecting premiums as it's dropping, but I am risking that, yeah, if it bounces back up and goes over my strike price, that I'm not gaining as much.
Right.
So if
But
you're
in terms of an overall risk, if it's something fearful of doing, buying the shares is more risky. Buy the shares and sell a covered call, you're protecting your downside slightly, if that
okay,
makes sense.
so you sell a covered call, it gets executed, you can buy a different one at a different strike, and that's called rolling. What, and then, or you could do the opposite side of like selling the put. What variables and what are you looking at that would make you choose one or the other after those? And are those the only things you would do if your covered call got executed?
So if I understand your question, it's basically asking if the covered call is exercised, yeah, if it goes above the strike price, kind of like what the best options are to do.
Yeah.
So it depends. Good question. And I guess it depends on how far above the strike price it goes. If it goes way above, it may exceed what you can buy it back at. But if it barely goes above the strike price and you get called on it, and so you have to sell your shares, but if it's just slightly above, then you can just buy it back and then sell another one at a higher price. Then you can just repeat it if it doesn't go too far beyond the strike price. Um, and in terms of selling puts, you bring up another strategy that I'm considering looking into and might do in the next few weeks or whatever, which is a long straddle. And what a straddle entails is buying a call above the current price and also buying a put below the current price. And so you have a position on both sides. And when you're buying, in that sense, you're expecting volatility. And so if it shoots a huge amount one direction, you're going to lose money, on like say it shoots up. You're going to lose money on the call, on the put that you bought, but you're going to gain a lot on the call. And so that's another strategy that I'm kind of considering doing with MicroStrategy because it is so volatile, and then you can make money on the up or the down, depending on which way it goes. But that gets a little bit more complicated. I'll save that for next time or for a future time.
Yeah, I
Are there
think
any,
oh, go ahead, Rochelle. Sorry.
are there any like tools that you use to keep track of your returns over time? So that way you can kind of like back test, oh, like is what I'm doing, am I actually like making profit here, or should I just hold and not touch things because I'm not doing it correctly?
No specific tools. I mean, I log everything and I always look at the history of the accounts and I'll go into my history and put it into a spreadsheet and see like where I made money and where I lost money on those kind of things. We'll start using that Think or Swim from Schwab And looking at that, that has some amazing tools. And I think Nathaniel that was on last week uses that, right, John?
Yeah, yep, that's the one he uses, and yeah, it's got a great analyze tab where you can throw in all these kind of variables and things to test yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm going to try to find somebody who can talk through, and maybe there's somebody on this call to talk to through the wheel strategy, which is sort of like I was reading a little bit about it today, and I watched a couple of videos, but essentially it's a way to make money even if you do get assigned, by using puts in the same way. So a cash secured put versus a covered call, and using them in tandem. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit next time. Next time we get together for a call. I'm pretty sure I know somebody who will be able to talk good, and Brian actually might be able to talk about it. I don't know if he's still listening in or not, but
No, I
uh,
cannot. I do not
okay,
know what you're talking about.
Brian. All right, maybe I'll do the research and I'll talk about it myself.
But
Uh,
while
You
you have
know,
me here, let me just poke in and say none of this is financial advice or tax
missed it.
advice or
You
legal
already, you
advice.
already, you already got covered. You missed your opportunity.
Uh,
yes, thank you, Brian. Thank you.
cheers. Thanks for all the info. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm satiated, but I want to leave it open if anyone has any comments or questions or anything. Feel free to drop in, going once, going twice.
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
So, Joe, have you ever done these strategies on a daily basis, like day trading with options?
No, I can't say I have done day trading options. I'll usually look like a week or a month out, or buy the long-term options when I'm buying options. I'll buy them. And especially with the micro strategy, I've bought 6 months and a year out. I have a few of those because I can kind of see where it's going. That longer time frame allows for a little bit more flexibility as it goes. If that makes sense. But no, I haven't done day trading.
Okay, because what I'm thinking, like this morning, can I share my screen, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do I just click?
I think down at the bottom you should be able to just go to share, and you should be. I think all
Uh,
participants are available.
okay, so this is what I'm thinking. So this morning I was up. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
So I day trade, right? So I was day trading this morning. I made three trades, three profitable trades. Pretty good morning. Has nothing to do with Bitcoin or MicroStrategy. I was trading like regular stocks, right? But I noticed something this morning in MicroStrategy. So in the pre-market, and I got these two graphs up, right? So this is 5:30 this morning until 6:30 this morning, right? Or 8:30 or 9:30 East Coast time. So on the Bitcoin chart, Bitcoin and MicroStrategy, like their charts are identical almost, right? So on Bitcoin, it did I guess between in the pre-market and before, let's see, like about an hour into market open, Bitcoin did like a 2-3% increase. It had this big dip and then it just shot up like 2% basically. But MicroStrategy at the same time did almost a 10% increase from that dip, right? So what I'm thinking, why can't I do uh a call option at buy this pre-market dip? Why couldn't I have done that and just rode it for like 45 minutes to an hour and then sold it up here somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely could. I mean, you're just talking about trading the call options themselves, not necessarily like a covered call option or one of these strategies. But yeah,
Right.
I mean, anytime that price moves, the options are going to move even more.
Because
And
even if you don't capture that whole 10%, right? Because I'm like a momentum trader, right? If I see a move coming that's like 10, 20, 30% or something like that, I only capture like maybe 5% of it, right? Get
sure,
in, get out.
sure.
But
But the
like
option
this,
will trade
this is a
even more than that.
crazy move. Like if you could even capture 2 or 3% of that in a call and sell it an hour later. Now I don't know how Schwab feels about that. I haven't explored that yet.
I
They
do think you have to make sure you have to check with your account because there are some things in there about the number of trades it's just an upgraded account. You can do it with Schwab. I mean, there are people who day trade, but
Right.
if you break a certain threshold of the number of trades you make in a day, you have to have some. I'm sure there's like more,
No,
permit.
you have to have at least 25,000 sitting in your account in order to do more unlimited day trades,
Yeah,
basically.
okay.
And they just keep
So,
sending you an alert. And I know this because I do it all day now. It's like
right.
what I'm very into because I'm a crypto trader. Now you got me on this stuff, dude. So I'm doing stocks now. And stocks are the real shit coins, by the way. Like shit coins make sense when you're trading them on the charts.
Uh-huh.
Stocks, like this market is wild, dude. It's like heavily manipulated. There's all this goofy shit that doesn't make any sense. So I don't know about this, but
I know. I know.
anyways,
Well,
but you
I'm not endorsing it. I haven't owned any stock in 7 years. First stock I
right.
owned in 7 years is
But
MicroStrategy.
you mentioned earlier like MicroStrategy's been trading sideways, but like that's why I brought this up. Like if you look at like pre-market or aftermarket, like there's not much volume, but today we had this like massive volume spike at
Yeah.
the end of the pre-market. And like this is super volatile. Like if you zoom into the 5 minute or 1 minute chart, dude, it's doing like 10% moves. So we do this like call option strategy on the 5 minute chart, dude. I mean, that's you can play with 5, 10%, one, two, maybe three times a day if you're lucky.
You're in a different world than me trading on the 5 minute chart. I'll say that much. But you already know that.
Right. Yeah, but I just wanted to point that out because I thought like this morning, like between 5:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. our time was like a phenomenal opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's one of the things I think of.
Sorry, Kyle. I think Kyle's trying to say something, but Kyle, you're breaking up. Try again. Yeah, you're kind of coming through. You're coming through like you sound like you're talking through I don't know.
through a wet towel.
Yeah, through a tube or something.
it's like we're being interrogated right now.
Yeah, are you an alien? Are you the alien invasion we were waiting for? Nah,
No.
it's not working. Sorry, man. Go ahead, Joe.
What was I going to say? Yeah, I like the way you think there, Ben, because my thought process for the past few months or past few years as well, last year even, was when I know what MicroStrategy's doing and I want to buy them, but instead of buying MicroStrategy, I buy a call option. And that's a high multiple, because one call option is a fraction of the cost and it represents 100 shares. And so when you see an opportunity like the one you just mentioned this morning, and you're at that dip and you think, yeah, I should buy that stock, but you buy the option, even just one, and you capture 5% of that 10% gain, uh, that's a huge gain in five
And
minutes.
that would have been insane too. Like just doing a strike price of say, I don't know, just to be conservative, maybe a strike price of 380.
Ben, hey, wait. So Kyle typed his question, which was, or not his question, but his statement, which was that you can only trade options during regular trading hours. So you may not be able to take advantage of those price movements from 5:30 to 6:30 because they're pre-market.
Okay, I did not. I haven't tried doing
And
that
I
yet.
don't
But
know.
but
When
then
you,
look
when
at,
you,
but
you
look
figure
at
it out,
this
let
right
us know.
here. I mean, you see this kind of movement in the pre-market. You put in your bid
Right.
right here at market open. I mean, look, like just looking at the Bitcoin chart, which they're trading almost in sync with each other. It's kind of weird, actually, if you really look at it. But like, you could have kind of front run these other people that maybe weren't looking at the Bitcoin chart and just rode this bad boy up, dude. That was the very easy trade to make. Just looking at the volume. And I mean, there's a lot of other indicators too, but it was a very easy trade to make just looking at basic indicators. So
Okay.
I don't know. Rant over though. Or
No, I love
enough
it.
with the day trade.
I love it. All right. Well, I've got to get going. Go get some dinner or whatnot. I love this stuff. I talk about it all the time. I talked about it with surfing today. Ben, you going surfing tomorrow or what?
I might be down. Maybe.
All right, we'll chat.
Possibly. Up by me. Up by me.
Yeah, I know. Well, we tried. A Street was a bust today, so Anyway, all right. Well, thank you all very much. This is great. We'll continue to do these things as much as people want to. There's a meetup tomorrow night in PB. Brian's meetup at Hideaway.
Hideaway Pacific Beach, 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Perfect.
Thanks
And
for the
I
plug.
hope what I mentioned or showed there was helpful to you
awesome.
guys.
Yeah, no, it was very helpful, Joe. You answered a lot of questions that I had for sure.
Good, good. And any questions anytime, feel free to let me know. Happy to help in any way I can.
Love it. All right, y'all. Have a great night.
See you guys. Thank you, John, for setting it up.
See ya.
See you guys. Thanks.